extremely close attention. The rules are changing, and if you don't know this information, you are more likely to be on the losing side than the winning side. I'm really excited about this. I'm rich. Dean Graziosi, Mike Filsaime, Katrina Ruth, Ryan Dice, the one and only Russell Brunson, Sonia Riccati. We have Molly here, Todd Brown, Rowan Fraser, Mike Diller, Jeff Walker, Neil Patel, Dennis Hughes. I think that there's a high risk of mass extinction of internet businesses.
Millions of businesses, big and small, closed, pushing us into the worst global recession in history.
The writing is on the wall because things are changing, things are happening.
Change in the industry that's forcing people to evolve and adapt or basically die.
You need to see this to understand it.
Something like that will happen. You can write it in blood.
If there was a tactic or strategy that you were most excited about, what would it be?
We can go as deep as you want.
I call this content sprouting.
These strategies work for any social media platform.
If you believe it's a good idea, you should stick with that.
When your business becomes part of someone's identity, that's when they stick.
This is really crazy. I don't know if I ever shared this with you. Waste the least amount of money to find that winner. That's how you win for $1 a day.
Now, I have people that are on my list for 2 years that are still opening the emails.
To get this many amazing people in a room, just amazing.
We're about to take you behind the scenes.
I love what you're doing here. This is amazing.
If you want to know what's happening in the future, tune in now.
So there we go. All right, so Alan, you're going to have to move closer to me. And hello, everyone. Let's just moving my stuff around here for a second. You'll notice that we have 3 people on this live stream. And one of the things that I said in the ad for this live stream and also in the email is that back in 2008 was a busy year for me. We had created the automated webinar, and I had written a report about that I shared with my clients, and really was a game changer for our business. And when I wrote it, it was called Evergreen Event Driven Marketing. And in that report, I laid out basically a webinar funnel that became the standard of the way most people have created their webinar funnels. Frank Kern, Russell Brunson, Mike Filsaime, all these guys. And so in addition to that, I also in 2008 I created my last coaching program that I have ever done, and that was on theory of constraints. And when it came time for me to learn theory of constraints, I tracked down the material of this man. He didn't know me and I didn't know him, but and scoot over just a little bit. We're gonna have to be like lovers here. I tracked down the material from this man through another acquaintance, and it was really his material where I learned the most about theory of constraints. And I watched this, I might have been a bootleg video of a 2-day seminar that Alan did with a huge company in India teaching the team theory of constraints. And so what I wanted, and for those of you who don't know who's on our left, it's Don Crowther. Don Crowther was actually one of the guests in that live stream that we did that you just saw the ad for, that we'll be releasing the docuseries pretty shortly. But I thought that today would be a great day. I had talked to Don last week about bringing him on because he's relaunching a course that him and Jeff Walker created on webinar funnels. And I happen to be in Las Vegas right now working on a project with Alan and Jay Abraham for a project using theory of constraints and marketing. And the way we're going to pitch it is through a webinar. Yep. So we're all webinar focused here. And what I thought I would do is first just give Don a few minutes to introduce himself, then go to Alan, let him introduce himself, and then hand it over to Don to really kind of set the stage about webinar funnels, the impact it can have, some distinctions that he thinks everyone should know. And really, this is a conversation amongst 3 acquaintances. Alan just met Don about 2 minutes ago. So, but I'd like to think that
And
we're
we're
three
all
smart
friends now.
people. Yes, we're three smart people, and because of that, we should have a very interesting, stimulating, and profitable conversation on webinars. So, if you are joining us, please let me know. Uh, Please say hi to both Alan and Don. Let Alan and Don and myself know where you are so that we can, I can show them and kind of show off what an international crowd we have and how spread out people are. And in addition to that, let us know that you're hearing us okay. I forgot to pack my microphone. I obviously brought my camera, but I didn't bring my microphone. And so since I didn't bring my microphone, you can see I'm using a left AirPod and Alan's using a right AirPod. And those are our microphones. Don's got a little bit better of a setup. He's got both ears in. With that said, Don, why don't you take like 2-3 minutes, just introduce yourself, then we'll hand it over to Alan, then we'll hand it back to you.
Sure. I'm Don Crowther. I have been a full-time online marketer since 1994, way back when it took 3 inches of floppy disk to load a browser that you were then on a 19.8 baud, which those of you who are complaining about having slow cell phone reception, that's way faster than we were. That was the only thing we had way back then. So been doing this for all those years and have been doing webinars for many of those years also. So one of my hobbies is I like to keep track of the number of people who have told me, Don, you made me a millionaire. And 3 months ago, I had somebody let me know that he was my 70th. And I'd love to add you to that list. So those of you who are listening, let's do this. Let's talk about webinars today and get you up over that $1 million point, and so that we can increase my numbers and make my hobby be even better.
Very, very cool.
So my name is DrAlanBarnard. I'm CEO of Golden Research Lab. It's a research lab that focuses on understanding why good people make and often repeat bad decisions, both in business as well as in their personal lives. And from that research, we've developed a range of apps to help people make better, faster decisions when it really matters. My brief background is I've been working for about 30 years. I graduated as an industrial engineer, went and studied psychology and economics, and then later did my PhD in innovation technology. But it all focused on the same thing, is why good people make and often repeat bad decisions. I started in the corporate world, and then later on, as an entrepreneur, run my own business. But the common thing is how do you get an organization, doesn't matter of the size, whether it's private or public, whether it's for-profit or not for-profit, how do you get it to substantially improve its performance? And that's where the framework of theory of constraints becomes very useful, because it basically says that any business is at least one constraint, else it would have grown infinitely. So what is that one constraint, that bottleneck or weakest link? Even if there isn't one, there's always very few. And that's essentially what we do with organizations, is help them find out what that constraint is in their business. Is it on the market side? Is it on the supply side? Is it internal capacity? What is it? And what's the simplest, fastest, lowest cost way of overcoming that constraint and raising their level of performance to performance levels that they previously didn't think was possible. So that's what I do. And as Rich mentioned, we've recently partnered with Jay Abrams. We're going to be doing a really exciting initiative in terms of how to put all of these frameworks together to help business owners exponentially grow their business.
And I think Alan's being kind of modest. Alan's really worked with some of the biggest, largest companies in the world doing extremely complex optimization, whether that's companies that like the size of Cisco or, huge manufacturing companies like Tata Steel in Japan that paid $30 million for Ellie and Alan and team to totally change the way their business operated, and so on and so forth. It's for those that are not as familiar with theory of constraints. Ellie Goldratt was the creator of it, and Alan was his sidekick and ran his research institute, research consulting, etc. And it's kind of the equivalent of being like Leonardo da Vinci's like right-hand guy, right? And now Leonardo no longer being with us, and this guy was hand chosen of all his people that he ever came in contact with to be the guy that was his partner in developing concepts, methodologies, and applications. So you might.
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking as I heard it. I thought, wow, what to be the sidekick of Ellie must have been quite something.
It was painful. But as an example of just what Rich mentioned, so we recently did a project with Microsoft. They had. I'm not sure how many of you viewers or listeners know, but Microsoft is a major business in terms of selling digital products, right? So cell phones, tablets, computers, HoloLenses, keyboards, mouses. And their primary problem was that they were experiencing a substantial amount of shortages and surpluses. We were given 3 months to design a complete end-to-end solution for their supply chain, build essentially a simulator to test any hypothesis that we came up of. What would be the simple changes that could reduce dramatically their shortages and surpluses, and then to implement it within their SAP system. In the same financial year that we started, they reduced their inventories across the board by over $250 million and got sales up by a few $100 million by just making a few small changes that ultimately reduce shortages and surpluses. Because a substantial portion of that is avoidable, and that's what we're looking at, is what are the avoidable and consequential decision mistakes that business owners make, and what's the simplest, fastest way of reducing or even preventing those decision mistakes.
So, pocket change, several $100 million. Yeah. All right. So before we kind of dive a little bit more in, let's say hello to everyone, and then we'll dive in. So let's see, because as I always try and do, I like to bring people's comments in because, one, things are much more interesting as a dialogue as opposed to a monologue and just the three of us talking at you. And two, you really, I get lots of thanks for doing these, and I appreciate the thanks, but the way you can really thank me is by being participative, because that's how Facebook determines how many people are going to see this, based on how much you react, how much you emote, how much you share. And so if you want to help us, that's the best way to help us. I also recognize that that you might not be able to hear Alan as well. And if you can't, Alan, you just got to project. I saw the one comment there. So let's just say hello to everyone that's with us. We've got Priya in Israel. I remember her from last time. She says hello. And we have Matteo. Don't know where Matteo is, but he's saying hello. We have Isabella, who's in Germany, and nice to see us. And we got Gabrielle, who must be in Hawaii, I think, if he's saying aloha. And Lewis, hi, back to you. Yep, best wishes from cold Germany. Yeah, Vegas is even cold today, believe it or not. Hello, David. Hello, Rach, very nice to see you. Must have missed. Is the report in the manifesto? Otherwise, where can we see it? I'm not sure which report you're talking about. Oh, it's out there. Just do a search for Evergreen Event-Driven Marketing. I'm sure someone pirated it and giving it away. Jason says, hello, Alan and Don. So thanks for being cordial to my guests, Jason. Best wishes from Germany. Hope you enjoy Vegas. Well, Don's not in Vegas. Just Alan and I are in Vegas. Where are you, Don?
Wisconsin.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Which is not quite Vegas.
Yeah, no. What happens in Wisconsin might stay in Wisconsin, but not for the same reason.
That's right.
Nobody cares.
So, Manuel, how's it doing from Vancouver, Washington? We got Hugo from Miami. Good to see you, Hugo. Hugo, I spoke to Jordan Barnard, so it'll be Jordan Barnard and Maxwell Finn that we'll get on a call with. So we have David saying hello, Don, Alan, and Rich from Boston, Mass. Manuel says, greeting, Rich. Lewis says, great topic for your 50th Facebook live stream. I did not realize that this was my 50th. Cool. Thank you for all the value. I've been here live every time, and I can't believe you do this for free. Well, thank you, Lewis. What's up, Rich, Alan, and Don from Newport News, Virginia, from Harry. Priyat says, nice. Nicolaj says hello from Norway. Priya says count her in. She would like to be your 71st millionaire.
All right.
And Priya says to you, Alan, that she loves your apps.
Thank you.
Yeah, so she's already familiar with you. Hard to understand, Alan. Yeah. So, well, if it gets bad, just let us know. But we realize that we're not playing with the best of microphones today. Here's something that Milo said. Every business has at least one constraint or it would grow infinitely. Pure gold, mind blown. Jay have the best manners and linguistics. It will be a great app for sure. Broadcast interrupted. Interrupted here too. Not interrupted for me, but I just jumped on. Okay, if one of you guys can just put in comments to if someone has interrupted to just hit play again or refresh their page, that would be appreciative, because if I sit and type it, you're all going to have to wait until I'm done typing. So Denise is in Ottawa, Canada. Good to see you. And Sandy is in Motor City. And Isabella, I will sue Netflix for not showing this. All right. So with all that said, Don, why don't you take over and talk about webinar funnels?
Okay. So webinars are, when I said I love creating millionaires, one of my favorite ways to do that is to get people doing webinars. Because webinars are one of the two very best ways out there, especially in today's pandemic times, to be able to get sales, get people coming to your offer, to increase your impact on the world. And the cool thing about webinars is that we've been doing them for years. There's a system that we have that has sort of become webinars, and that system, it works. There are literally millions of dollars webinars every week. Launch brought in 1.8 million webinar before. It's a tactic that is still working and working. Though, is that the traditional model of webinars has a that and Alan, I'm sure, time where it's like, okay, here's a business that's working well, but if we fix some holes, all of a sudden we can double the results. Like you just described with Microsoft, how fixed a few holes and all of a sudden here's these great results that come out of it. The same thing happens with webinars. If we can start fixing those holes, then we end up significantly increasing, like 50 to 80% more sales. And or I've seen sales go as high as 5 to 10 times more just by doing the things that we're going to talk about today. So the important thing to recognize is this. Most of the people who talk about webinars and do training on webinar and things like that all focus around the webinar itself. What you say at 3 minutes into the webinar and how you pivot from your information into your offer and exactly how you close your offer and when you put your testimonials in. And all of that is important. You really need to have a webinar that does a good job of delivering those base elements in the webinar. But the real sales that come from a webinar happen not from the webinar itself, it happens from the funnel that you build around your webinar. And so that's what I focus on in Webinar Funnel Formula, is that funnel that surrounds your webinar. And yes, we do talk about how to make sure your webinar is great in that process, but we focus primarily on that funnel that surrounds it. And specifically on those key holes and how to fill those holes. So, Rich, what I'd like to do, unless you've got a question or some questions that come in from the audience to fill in, is to start off with one of those key holes that's pretty easy to describe how to fill it. And hopefully this will immediately give your audience some great ideas that will enable them to be able to just significantly increase the results from their next webinar. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. One thing I just wanted to add was, because it's actually something that Alan and I were talking about earlier this morning, there's a book that, one book of Ellie's of many, right? And the title is Necessary, but Not Sufficient, right? And it's just a good kind of way of describing things like the webinar in a webinar funnel. Obviously, with no webinar, you can't do it. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient to have a great webinar to actually have a blockbuster webinar funnel that's making you money, right? And so the webinar is necessary, but it's not sufficient. And that's why so many people like Jason Fladline and all these great people that have really good information on selling through a webinar, Mike Filsaime, same kind of thing. Most of their focus, or Russell even, most of their focus is on what is being said, like you said, Don, on the webinar itself, and not all the fundamental elements that surround it. And, one last thing on this, when Jeff Walker invited me to I was at his first PLF seminar, and then he invited me to his second one. And at the second one, we had already started doing webinars. And so he asked me if I would give a little presentation. And what I said from the stage is still what I believe to be the case today, that launches are phenomenal. I would not be here today if I had not followed Jeff Walker's product launch formula. It's what put me on the map. It's what's got me known. But launches are a bonus. They're not a business. And if your business relies on launches, then you have tremendous problems in your business, because the business becomes very cyclical and you have to scale up for all your customers coming in over a short period of time and then no activity. So I've always looked at launches as a bonus. Your core business needs something where you can sell your back ends daily. It's that kind of business that is sustainable and then also scalable. And a webinar is very critical to that whole process. It's one of the easiest ways to sell high-priced products without having to get on the phone and actually talk to people. Generally, it goes webinar, and then the next step above that is to potentially have people on the phone. And the reason why is that you're kind of a hybrid, right? When you're doing a webinar, you're doing a sales presentation to an individual, but you're doing it to a group of people at the same time. And that's tremendously more powerful than a sales letter or almost anything else out there right now, as far as to be able to sell high ticket products. And I've never been on a webinar that sold like anything more than, I think, like about $30,000 or $40,000. I worked on a Ray Kurzweil webinar for his doctor's clinic in Colorado or wherever it was, and they sold like a $40,000 medical package, and they were crushing it. Actually, they came to me because it was kind of not slick, and they brought it to me and they asked me, like, what would I change in this? And when I looked at the results, I thought it not being slick actually worked for it. And I said I wouldn't change anything with this webinar. If anything, I would change the funnel, which leads us back to you, Don. So let's talk about that funnel and talk about that first hole. Okay.
All right. And what you just said just reminded me of a couple of other things I want to mention about the webinar real quick. So couple of things. One of them is the webinar in my mind is the fastest way to go from new idea to cash in the bank, because you can literally come up with an idea on Monday, do a webinar on Friday, and have money in your bank on Friday night. And you can pull that off with a webinar. You can never do that with many of the other systems that are out there in marketing. It's also wonderful for doing things like a JV kind of launch, where you can go to, so let's say I'm running a major launch and Rich is busy during that time. He's already got another launch going on or something like that. Rich and I could make a deal where, hey, 2 months from now, he could just mail his list and I come on and do a webinar just to his list. And he introduces me, and then I do that webinar, and we split the revenues that come from that. And so it's a great way, as he said, launches tend to be very, high peak and then nothing for months, and then another high peak the next time you do a launch. Webinars are a great way to flatten that curve out and have that income coming in steadily throughout the year. All right, so let's talk about the first hole, which is probably the key one that most people don't realize. So, Alan, I'm going to refer here to you for just a minute. Theory of constraints. I realize that if they're in a process whatever is the restrictor, the speed limiter, that's the one you fix. But if I got 2 speed limiters and what I want, okay, pull it out of that, because I started going down the theory of constraints route, and it's like I'm not going to get to where I want to be from that. So here's the point. The more people you can put on your webinar in the first place, the higher all of your results are going to be after that point. And so what I'm really wanting to do is I want to focus at the front of the funnel. And the key hole in the front of the funnel is that on average, between 5 and 35% of the people who sign up for a webinar are all that actually show up on that webinar. And we look at that and we say, what? It's like they just came, they saw it, they signed up, they possibly even gave you their personal cell phone number to get text reminders of it, but they can't manage to show up on the webinar that happens like 10 hours later. It's like, it just doesn't make sense until you actually start thinking about it, and then it quickly starts making sense. So let's talk about what's happening mentally and emotionally in someone's mind when they sign up for a webinar. So when they come and they see your offer for your webinar, you just promised them that you were going to give them something on that webinar, and they go, wow, I want that. And so they sign up for that webinar. And then what happens is, in the hours that intervene between when they sign up and when the webinar actually happens, then life starts happening, right? You know, kid falls down, breaks his tooth, they got to take him to the dentist and get that thing fixed. They're not going to be on your webinar at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because they're at the dentist, and that is one of the problems, is that people actually forget or life gets in the way. But there's a much bigger problem than that. And that is that there's a lot of us who, when we sign up for that webinar, we had some excitement about coming to the webinar. But then between the time you sign up for the webinar and when the webinar actually is held, we begin to lose some of that excitement about the webinar. And so that excitement starts to turn into, oh, maybe I'm not all excited about it. Or maybe he's just going to sell me on it. Or maybe he won't actually deliver what he promises me. Because, hey, let's all face it, there's a lot of webinars out there that have done a really bad job of giving people what they promised in the webinar. And so there's a lot of us who are pretty thick-skinned about this. And it's like, we don't really believe we're going to get out of the webinar the world peace or a permanently blissful marriage that the webinar is promising us. And so we tend to lose that enthusiasm in between. And how we tend to handle that in the industry, the traditional webinar model, is we send out 4 or 43 reminders to somebody in between, thinking that the problem is they just forget. Well, in reality, that's not the problem. The problem is they forgot how excited they were about it. They lost that excitement because you didn't do anything to build that excitement. So the solution to this problem is to actually give them content between the moment they sign up for the webinar and when the webinar is actually held, that not only continues that excitement, but starts to deliver the promise that you made for that webinar. So if you promised them that you were going to help them with their relationship, what you may want to do is send out a special report. Let's say it's a relationship with their teenager, okay? So a special report on how to instantly defuse an argument with your teenager. And then maybe the next day you send out a survey talking about, hey, what are the biggest things that tend to cause friction between you and your teenager? And what are the biggest questions you have that we can answer in this webinar, with a promise that you're going to actually talk about several of those things on the webinar. And then maybe the next day you send out, hey, here's the best way we've discovered to handle curfew with our teenagers, and what happens when they violate that curfew, so that it doesn't turn into a fight that's going to continue for the next 2.5 years. And so basically you're starting to give to them the solution that you promised that the webinar was going to give, but you're giving it to them before the webinar is even held. And when you think about this for just a minute, look at the 2 different ways of communicating. So when I send out 43 reminders, they start to wonder, so why does he want me to come to this webinar so much? Well, of course, it's because he's going to sell me something. Well, I don't want to get sold to, so I'm just going to not come to that webinar. Maybe I'll catch it on the replay where I can fast forward through any parts that I don't want to listen to. Think about that versus the other one where they've already started getting the results that you promised them in the webinar before the webinar is ever held. What you're doing then is you're saying, hey, you can trust us. We understand you. We understand your problem, and we're willing to start to solve that problem. On all of this is happening before the webinar starts. And so you should come to the webinar because we're going to give you even more great stuff on the webinar itself. And what this process does, go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, just a quick comment on that of how it relates to where's the ultimate constraint, right? So in the 2000s, myself and Rich sort of completely independently reached the same conclusion that even with the biggest companies that I was working with in the world, you say, like, where's the constraint? Is it the size of the market? No, that's not the size of the market that's constraining your growth if you have 2% of the world market, right? It's not the supply unless you have bought out all the supply of the products or services that you convert. It's not capacity or talent or even cash. So what is it? And our conclusion was it's actually our limited attention. That is the ultimate constraint for us. The bottleneck is at the top of the bottle. But there's an implication of that, which is normally the way that we would evaluate where to invest, our scarcest resources, we would use something like return on investment, right? But what if we change that to something I call return on management attention or return on my attention? This is a practical way of deciding. And to give you an idea with webinars, you will probably agree that it doesn't matter what you sell. If you really find it down to a specific niche, doesn't matter how specific that niche is, you're going to get 100,000 customers in the world. Let's just pick a number, right? Out of the 7.5 billion, there will be at least 100,000 people that could benefit from your product or service. If you could sell those 100,000 at $10, that's $1 million business. If you could sell them at 10,000 because you've created a high-ticket webinar funnel, right? That's $1 billion business. Now you think about the return on your attention. If you were selling that hour normally with consulting or coaching, you can get a couple of $100, or you have the level of Rich and yourself and Jay, you could maybe get a couple of $1,000 per hour. But then you hit a cap, right? Imagine selling with a webinar 100,000 clients over a period of time at $10 a pop. That's $1 million per hour. Or if you sold it at $10,000, that's $1 billion an hour that you could have generated by understanding that your constraint is nothing of those. It's your attention. What and who you pay attention to makes all the difference. But that also translates to our customers. Our customers' constraint is the same thing. It's their limited attention. And what you're just describing is to figure out two things. How do I grab their attention in a world of distractions? And then how do I keep it, right, until the point that the webinar goes? And I think that's a beautiful example of just what are those simple, practical things that I can do to grab their attention and then to keep it up to the point of the webinar. And obviously throughout the webinar, etc.
And I had a quick question, Don. Were you planning on going to the registration process, or were you really just, because I want to say some things about the registration process if you're not.
I'm planning to talk about registration process in just a minute. So
okay, cool. So then I'll
hold that
back
for just a minute, a minute further. Okay, so let's. I like, and I love what you just said, Alan. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because when you really want to attract somebody's attention, there's two ways of doing it. One way is to yell louder and yell more frequently. Okay, the problem of that is that it's costly and the yelling becomes less effective over time. Just look at the elections in the United States right now. What we're doing is we got a lot of people yelling louder than everyone else, and nobody's paying attention to any of it. Now, the other way of doing it is to whisper softly what they really want to hear. And the question I have is, way back in high school, when you were trying to get a date, which one of those worked better?
Neither one of us would know. We were nerds. I was afraid to ask out a girl until I got into college. And even then they had to come approach me and say, I saw you staring at me. What's the problem? And I'm like, well, I like you. That's the issue.
Okay. Could you imagine?
Yeah. I rehearsed it in my mind a lot. It just never happened.
Okay, so basically what I'm saying here is I'm trying to shift from the traditional model of yelling louder and yelling more frequently to just whispering what they really want to hear. And the net result is at least double the number of people show up on your webinar. And when they show up, they're more positively oriented to you and they're more willing to buy when you finally give your offer out. So I'd love to know, Rich, if the comments are saying that this is making sense, or if anyone's saying, "Oh, I don't believe in this."
No, they're all pacing with you so far. It's all good.
Okay.
They want you to keep going.
And it's interesting from a supply chain perspective, we've known for ages the massive benefit of moving from a push strategy, of pushing your products and services into the supply chain versus a pull strategy. Creating that pull, and that's exactly what you're saying, right? You can push it by screaming louder, or you can whisper that simple message that creates the pull, that creates that curiosity, that's going to keep their attention. Like, what is it that I don't know that they're going to be sharing with me?
Hey, I'm going to. That's okay. Okay. Since you for just, there are ways to get for your webinar, and I'm sure that there are people who have no list or a very small list who are going to say, when I say you mail your list, they're going to say, well, that doesn't fit me, right? But before we discount that, let's talk to the people who do have a list for just a minute and talk about what it is and when it is that you start mailing about your webinar. So here's the important thing that most people do right now when they are marketing their webinar. They're continuing along with the normal communication stream that they normally do. And then all of a sudden one day they say, hey, I've got a webinar in 3 days, you should come. And what that does is that the group of people who agree with you and think that that webinar is a great thing for their life, they'll show up. But what ends up happening if you want to significantly increase your increase your registrations from your list, and trust me, I'm going to get to the non-list part in just a minute, is that you need to start viewing your webinar not just as an event, this one thing that's going to happen, and then that event's going to be over. Start thinking about the entire process as a campaign where we're going to start to shift the conversation that is occurring in our email and our social media for maybe a week or two in advance of your webinar from what you were talking about to start to move them to the point that they need to be, so that when you do say, I got a webinar in 3 days, they're going to say, that totally makes sense. And so oftentimes the way we do this is that we start out a couple of weeks in advance, maybe putting out some videos, some lives, some emails, some things that are starting to talk about the big idea that will be your webinar without ever saying that you're going to do a webinar on the specific subject. You're starting to introduce them, to convince them, to whisper quietly in their ear the things that they need to hear so they start to understand and buy into the concepts that you're pushing at, so that when you then say, I've got a webinar in 3 days, they're going, absolutely, I'm there. What this tends to do is, at any given point, a small fraction of your list is going to sign up for your webinar. By doing this, by starting to plow that ground in advance, you then probably at least double the percentage of people who are going to sign up for your webinar and get them to do so. So that's the first piece when it comes to your list as such and how to do that. Rich, what I thought I'd do is I'd give like 3 pieces here and then open it up to you to talk about what you're thinking, okay?
Great.
Okay, all right, second thing. One of the second problems that almost all of us have is that almost all of us have a large group of people who follow us on social media who aren't on our list. We see this all the time. People who've got 14,000 people who are following them on Instagram and Facebook, and they have a list of 200 people. And one of the things that we keep telling you is get them off of social media onto your email list. Actually, not necessarily off of social media, but you need to get their email list. You need to get them on your list. And you say, but how do I do that? Every time I try to give them an opt-in offer in social media, they don't respond. Well, one of the very best ways to do that, to convert somebody from a social media follower to a person on your list, is to run a webinar. Even better is to run a series of webinars. So one of the things that I strongly teach and strongly believe in is doing regular webinars. So basically, that's what Rich is doing here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, is he's basically running regular webinars. But I'm actually talking about doing this in a webinar platform where people have to actually sign up for that webinar via email, because in doing that, that puts them on your list. So you now have them there. So in doing this process, what you're doing is you're converting your social media followers into your social media followers who are now also on your list, and you use the two to support each other going back and forth. So that's your second strategy. Third strategy is, and I know that there are some of you who are going to cringe and say, this is absolutely not what I want to do. And I'm going to preface that by saying, I totally understand. So what I'm going to say is one of the very, very best ways to get people to attend your webinars is to advertise them. But think about this for a moment. Oh, I don't want to do advertising because I can spend a whole lot of money and not make any money from it. And you can have that attitude. And as soon as you have that attitude, you just significantly limited the amount of money that you're going to make in your entire career. And when you start shifting that attitude from, okay, I'm not going to advertise, into I'm going to take a certain percentage of all the money that I make and put it into advertising. And then I'm going to keep that amount constant, that percentage constant. So the more I make, the more it ends up going into advertising. So let's say, for example, that you know that you can run a webinar, and from your list in your social media, you can get 100 people onto that webinar. All right. What if you were to say, okay, I'm willing to spend $250, and my goal is to get 50 more people to come to that webinar based on spending that $50. So about $5 more per registrant. And so as you do that, what ends up happening is that now, instead of getting 100 people who signed up for your webinar, you now have 150. And since you're going to use the techniques I just told you to get more of those people who register to attend your webinar, now you might get double the number of people to attend your webinar, which potentially means that double that number now buy. And then you take a certain percentage of that additional revenue you've got and plow it into advertising for your next webinar. And what ends up happening is you get this amazing vertical spiral, this beneficial spiral going up. And so you're making more. So you're getting more people to attend your webinar. So then you're making more. So then you're getting more people to attend your webinar. And pretty soon you've got yourself a hugely amazing system that'll make you more and more money over time, and becomes a huge foundation for your entire business. So those are 3 ideas that you can use to get more people to register for your webinar. And there's a whole bunch of them more, and I'm sure Rich is going to bring up some of them right now, but I wanted to throw those out as 3 fairly quick and easy ideas that you should be considering as you start to promote your next webinar. Rich?
Yeah, and I agree with everything you said. In the first thing, as far as warming people up, once they've registered, as well as the registration process. And so the way I look at it is that, well, it's based on a bunch of experience, right? So I first would ask everyone to reflect on your own personal experience when you register for a webinar. And when you're registering for webinars, is every webinar that you register for, like, do you mark it down on your calendar and it's like, tell your family you have plans and you're definitely coming? Or do you register sometimes for webinars with that intent, but other times you're curious and maybe you'll go, and other times, like, if you've got nothing to do and you're bored, maybe you'll attend. And hey, if you don't make it, maybe hopefully there's a replay. I think for most people that register for a webinar, the decision of how much they plan on attending is made right during that registration process. I believe that what Don was sharing in the warm-up can convince some who were thinking this might be a maybe to, I'm definitely going because I already got value, and so there'll be more value. And so you can save some of the people in the follow-up process. And if you're going to do that, if you're going to do the follow-up process, then I suggest that you don't only follow up with email, but you also follow up with retargeting, because retargeting is so inexpensive, and you can really be delivering a tip a day, and you can know who clicked on those tips. And then, several hours before your webinar goes live, you can actually switch all of the retargeting ads to just show, tonight at 8 p.m. or today at 4 p.m. we go live, right? And so it's just a way of making sure that people don't forget. But if you really want more than people not forgetting, and that's where Don was saying, like, warming people up, getting them to know you, right? Obviously better if it's a video, because then they can see they can see your face, they can hear your voice, and so when you're showing a bunch of slides, they still know the person behind the slides. Now, one of the things that we
Rich, before you get off of retargeting, I just want to make a point here.
Sure.
Those of you who are watching this right now who have not tried retargeting, I will tell you, I have never yet done a retargeting campaign where I've lost money. It is really, really hard to spend a lot of money in retargeting, because it's simply the math just doesn't work. And so you can put a very small amount of money into retargeting and get amazing results from retargeting. So if you don't do any other advertising other than retargeting, go figure out how to do retargeting. It's just so important. And what Rich just brought up is absolutely accurate. And I totally love that you brought that up. Thanks, Rich.
Yeah. And the first person that I saw do it incredibly effectively was Ryan Levesque. Like, he just had this master kind of thing. Like, he placed the pixel on the thank you page of the registration process. And then, he was giving out strategies. Like, as soon as the next time I went onto Facebook, I saw him, he was following me and, getting me excited about what he was going to cover and giving me something right then and there in short videos. So it was really powerful. The other thing that we realized, and I think I've shared this on other live streams, but I think it's so critical, is that what we found was this dilemma, right? Where the more that we put on the registration page, the lower the registration rate, but the higher the show up rate. And the less that we put on the registration page, the higher the registration rate, but the lower the show up rate. And so what do you do? And so what we figured out was, let's break everything down to the micro goal. And when I was talking about persuasion a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about what's the smallest step that you need people to take and focus in on that. So really, the registration page, the way I tried to look at it was, okay, what's the purpose of the registration page? The purpose of the registration page is get them to register. But I do have to sell them on attending if I am correct in my belief that people make the decision of whether they're actually going to attend, for the most part, before they get to that thank you page, or after they leave that thank you page, really after they leave that thank you page of the registration process. So we want to build our list as much as possible. So we always want as many people as possible to register, because that then gives us the opportunity to follow up and to put a lot of other things in front of them. But we also need people to show up. So what we did is we broke it into two pages. The first page was a very clean registration page. it didn't give a lot of information. It had a sexy title, maybe 2 or 3 bullets, a video of me, and then a pick which day you want to go. And that was it. Just pick which day. And once they picked which day, had the day and the time, then the very next page where they would put in their name and email address, that had more of a total explanation of what was going to be covered. I think they put their email too, actually, in a pop-up box once they picked the time, now that I think about it. So first page, pick a time, then a pop-up box came where it was like enter in your name and email address and click here. And then the very next page they went to described more of me, what they were going to learn, what we were going to cover, why it was a must-attend event. And as I was saying to Alan, the best kind of, at least, and you guys, Don, and you and Jeff might have done a lot more thinking about this. I hadn't done that much thinking about it. But what I found were the best titles generally had high curiosity, self-interest, and timeliness, right? So it's like the strategy that I used to get 2 million downloads of the manifesto that my best clients are using right now to crush it today, so that it has that timeliness, and that I'm going to reveal on this webinar, right? So it's that you can use too, or whatever. So it has those 3 elements. That's just a random thing, but the title would be dimensionalized on that second page. And then on the thank you page, we'd have another video reselling them, giving them some info, and really trying to get them excited about wanting to come. And then the other thing is that we also monitored open rates on the warm-up series, because we saw a high correlation between people who opened up those and attended versus the many that weren't opening. And that's where retargeting can be really powerful, because if you're not getting through to them in their email box, the likelihood of them showing up is just not as high if they're not opening. Because if they were excited, obviously they would open. And the other thing that we did, which was useful for us, is that when a webinar process is completely dialed in, it could be a 3-week, it could be a 3-week window to really know what the results of that webinar were, because you have multiple days leading up to the webinar. You have the webinar, you might have a replay, an encore, or whatever you want to call it. Then you're going to have another 7 days or 5 days of follow-up, because those could make as many sales as the webinar, and I'm sure Don will get into that. And then you might have a downsell sequence that's the person doesn't even know that there is a downsell sequence in that, but that's still part of the process as you're recouping all the sales that you can from the people that are going through that funnel. So, what we had was the webinar, then a week later was me live on stage presenting the same information. Then anyone who attended either one of those in full but didn't buy, we figured they believed in the philosophy, right? Or they wouldn't have stayed to the end, but maybe the price point was too high. So then we sold them our continuity program, which was Founders Club, which is $50 a month instead of $400 a month. And, we tried to extract as much money as possible. What we learned at Agora, and I shared it in the first issue of Steal Our Winners, was that we had this campaign that was a webinar that we were paying $3 a lead for on Facebook, and the campaign was a loser. The ROI was negative, even with our crazy allowable acquisition costs. At the $3 leads were not working. And we had a self-liquidating offer after the registration page. It was the book of the person who was the primary guest of the webinar. And what we did was we changed the optimization in Facebook, right? Instead of telling Facebook our goal is registrations, we told them our goal is sales of the self-liquidating offer, the SLO. Right, the $20 offer in there. Because what we found was there was a very high correlation between people who bought the book, who showed up on the webinar, and also purchased on the webinar. Those people had a much higher show-up rate, had a much higher buy-through rate. And so we had to pay more per lead, right? Because now Facebook was trying to find people who would buy the self-liquidating offer as opposed to just register for the webinar. And it increased our lead costs, but it turned a losing money webinar into a very profitable webinar. First, we were recouping a lot more of our advertising costs right from the get-go because we had this self-liquidating offer. And two, we also had just a much better audience. We were paying more for that audience, but the algorithms for social media have gotten so good that if you're not leveraging everything Facebook knows, or you're not leveraging everything that YouTube knows, or whatever platforms you're using, you're really playing against a machine that will always win, and you're going to lose. Like, they know more about the people on their platforms than we will ever know, and they know the people that are most likely to buy the SLO. It's our job to know the people that buy the SLO are more likely to buy on our webinar and show up on our webinar. And if we know that, then we can use Facebook for all it's worth, or YouTube, or whatever. So anyway, if it's
Rich,
not,
let me jump in and just ask, because I'm sure that some people are asking this question, which is, did your ads send them to the SLO and then you signed up for the webinar on the back end of that? Or did you go through the webinar sign up and then the SLO was
same ads.
was thank you page?
The same ad. We're still registering, we're still advertising the webinar. We're just telling Facebook our goal on this is to get to the thank you page of the SLO. Yeah, and that was all it took. And the last thing I wanted to say, and then hand it back to both of you guys if you want to say anything before Don continues, is that it should be obvious to everyone that the registration process is the very top of the funnel. Small changes at the top of the funnel can mean dramatic differences in sales at the bottom of the funnel. You add an extra 10% registration, 10% registering, that can dramatically change the results that you have at the end. And so this is the top of the funnel. So you want it as wide as possible, and therefore the registration and show up, a lot of people these days get a 20, I don't know what averages these anymore. I'm sure you do, Don, but if you get like a 25% show up, a 25% registration rate, and then you get a 20% show up rate, you end up with 5 out of 100 people, right? 100 people registered, 5 showed up. Like you would, if you sold 100% of the people that came, you'd still only have a 5% conversion rate, and you're not going to sell 100%. So you lose so much more when you don't have these pieces dialed in. And trust me, it's not easy, but it's a lot easier to get someone to show up. It's a lot easier to get someone to register than it is to get them to part with $2,000, $5,000, or $10,000 at the end of the webinar. So you want to hit where it's easiest. You want to get higher registrations. You want to get higher show up rates. And the more that you don't, the more that you've taken all the effort that you put into creating this webinar for nothing, because very few people will ever see it. So just wanted to stress the importance of it.
Yeah, maybe just from my side, maybe just a question or comment, Don, I'd like to get your views on it. So considering the fact that you said that the webinar is really also an amazing way of building your list, right? It's not just to sell your product, but to build your list. And people want instant gratification. You want them to stay focused on a key thing. Should that registration page be split into 2, where the first step is just give us your email and we'll immediately send you this bonus thing that will keep your attention up to the webinar. And then the second page is, now pick your time slot, etc. Because I found myself, if I go to, first of all, pick the time slot, all this stuff, I lose attention already. And then they'll never get my email. So does it make sense to have sort of 2 pages on that registration, where the first one is just get their email and then ask them all the other questions that you want to know from them?
Brilliant question. I've done a number of tests on this. I can't give you an absolute definitive answer. I can give you a definitive answer when it comes to advertising. And that is, when I'm running paid ads, cold ads, so not retargeting, cold ads directly to webinar sign up page, I will almost always win by having them give me their email address first for an opt-in incentive before I present them the webinar on a thank you page. Okay, so when you're going from your list, probably it's better to just go directly to the signing up for the webinar. You've already got their email address, and so you go from there. So,
and one last thing that I wanted to share, that I forgot is that, because I've seen this mistake. Agora used to make this mistake, and they probably still do in many of the divisions. But when someone registered for one of our webinars, they immediately were taken on. They were immediately added a tag, "Do not mail," and all of our broadcasts now, those people would not get. They would only get the broadcast, that the sequence of the autoresponders that were designed for the webinar. And when I went to Agora, like, they would still have the daily emails from the guru going out, oftentimes talking about very different things. And I'm like, guys, this makes no sense. Supposedly this guru is super excited about this thing that's happening next week, and that should be all this person is talking about. There should be nothing else. We don't want to hear about a promo every other day before this, because then how big of a deal really is this, right? So we always put someone on lockdown as far as any other emails. No emails for our own offers, no emails for affiliate offers, nothing. They went into a hole. They were touched every day through email, but until this campaign was over, and that's that whole campaign, the downsells, the upsells, whatever, they were not mailed anything else. And I think that, like, if you're really going to try and maximize the sales of your webinar, you need to do that too, because you send very mixed signals when you do what Don was saying, like building up to it in the editorial and what you're emailing out and getting people excited. And you're also, pulling in a whole bunch of other things to show that you're really not that excited, that you're really, like, that's just a ploy. So back to you, Don.
Totally agree. Okay. So let's talk about a third hole that I think is important, which is, what about that whole group of people that don't sign up, that don't register for your webinar? How in the world do you sell to that group? So here's the challenge. Because there's been nothing in the traditional webinar promotional strategies to sell to that group. So let's say you've got a list and you promote your webinar to that list, and a certain percentage of them sign up. Well, the vast majority of them didn't sign up. All right, so what do you do with that group of people that didn't sign up? Traditionally, what you do is you send them the replay of your webinar. But here's the thing that we find. Replays on webinars work incredibly well for those who signed up for the webinar and attended the webinar. Those who signed up for the webinar and don't attend the webinar, it works okay with them, because some of them, it's like, okay, I got busy, or I just wanted the replay, or as Rich said, I'm not like incredibly excited about this, but I'll watch the replay. But the group that it doesn't work with it almost at all is the group of people that didn't sign up for the webinar in the first place. But we haven't built anything into the traditional webinar promotional model to address that group at all. And so what I'm finding is the real money is coming up in two places. Number one, getting the people who register for your webinar to attend. And secondly, getting those who didn't register in the first place to buy. So how do you get the people that didn't register in the first place to buy from you? The short answer is that you do a mini launch to that group of people that does not look like a webinar, but it's giving them the information they would have gotten had they come to the webinar, but you do it in different formats. So let's just imagine for a moment that your webinar teaches 3 core principles. All right. So instead of just saying, oh, hey, you could have learned 3 core principles if you would have come to this webinar, watch the replay of the webinar. Instead of doing that, once the ability to sign up for the webinar is passed, you then carve them out into a separate list, put them on a do not mail, anything else like that, and you're just going to focus on them for the rest of this campaign. And so the first thing you do is you send them out a video, maybe with a PDF download, for the first one of those 3 principles. Then the next day or 2 days later, you send out the next one, and you send out the next one. At no point in there are you referring back to the webinar. At no point in there are you saying watch the replay. You're simply giving them that content in a different format that now they're willing to go and consume. So it's usually a combination of video, download, and email. Sometimes you can put an audio in there or something else like that. But basically, you're playing with the tools. You just don't make it look like a replay of your webinar. I actually strongly encourage you to, let's say your webinar used blue and yellow as the colors, break it out into totally separate looks so it doesn't look anything. Make sure you don't have the logo for your webinar on those pages. In other words, make it look like they're getting new incremental content about this subject that you were talking about a week and a half prior to this point. Now you're giving some core content on it. And then only after you've given them that content do you then send them to a sales letter. So in other words, you're viewing them as a group of people that have not responded at all to the webinar. So now I'm going to do a launch to this group of people.
I love that.
And as soon as you do that, go ahead.
No, well, are you finished with the idea, that part?
I was just going to say what ends up happening is oftentimes you increase your sales on your webinar by like 80% just by doing this one strategy. And there are people who would not have bought from you. And so this is pure extra dollars going to your bottom line. Go ahead, Rich.
When you shared that idea with me, like I totally saw its power and it's profound, and I hope everyone else does too. Where I would put that, and I don't know if you agree, but let me tell you where I'd put it and why, and then you tell me. I'd have that campaign start the day that, like right after you've done, if you're going to do a replay or encore, and I'll tell you why. Jay Abraham, myself, and another gentleman named Steven, we did this teleseminar series way back in 2002 or 3. And what we did was, and that was a paid teleseminar series, right? And we had a lot of people register for it and pay for it. And we did, and it was one teleseminar each week, right, for 3 weeks. And after the first one, we said, like, we had a gift. We had something that expanded on some of the topics that we went over in the first teleseminar. And we told people, look, we don't want to bribe you. If you didn't get value from this, maybe you should ask for a refund or whatever. But if you got value from tonight, the next two are going to be even better. And if you got value from tonight, we'd like to give you more about what we were talking about tonight. And so if you'll give us a testimonial about how good tonight was, we will give you more content from like our archives on these topics, right? So we got immediately like several hundred testimonials about how good that was. And that night, Stephen and I stayed up late. We took 99 of the best testimonials, and we put that into a PDF. We sent it to all the people out there, said it's not too late. You can listen to the replay of call 1 and be live on 2 and 3. But here's what 99 other marketers said about what you just missed, right? And I believe that I've done the same thing with webinars, where at the end of the webinar, people often ask for your slides. They ask for like the transcript. And it's like, well, if you want the slides or you want the transcripts, obviously you've gotten value from it, because who wants something that they got no value from? So if you want that, all I ask of you is to send me an email letting me know how valuable this webinar was, what you got out of it, that I can share with other people so that they know what they're missing by not getting on this webinar. And then, you could give people who did not register one last chance to register to be live on the encore, right? By using that, like what people who that webinar I invited you to, you didn't attend, you didn't register, but these people did. Here's what they're saying. It's not too late. This will be the last email I send you on the webinar because I happen to be doing an encore. So many people liked it and you can get on it. But if you don't get on this, then, the webinar will be over for you for now. And that might be like a way to try and get more people into that webinar process. But once you've done that, you really got nothing else. And then the product launch like version of it makes tremendous sense.
So one of the things I love about talking to you, Rich, is that you're so smart. And you've thought about things that a lot of our peers just have never gone that deep into thinking about these things. So I love that. That's a brilliant idea. I love the putting together, here's what 99 other marketers who saw it have shared. I have a similar strategy. One of the things I've found is at the end of the webinar itself. So let's say you started off with 300 people on the webinar. And my rule is once I get to answering questions, I keep answering questions until they stop buying. And so sometimes it might be like an hour later still answering questions because they're still buying. But eventually you get down to the point where there's like 50 people still in the webinar.
Right.
Okay, they've been with you for a long time. And all of us who've done webinars have known of this. And it's like, what do you do with this group of people where you know that of those 50, like 3 of them are purchased and the other 47 are sitting there trying to decide if they're still going to buy from you or trying to suck everything they possibly can out of you for free. And that both of those factors exist. And so one of the things that I've discovered is that's when I ask for the testimonial. I say, so you've been on this webinar with me for all this time. Clearly there have been some value. And one of the things that I'd like to ask you is, could you possibly do me a favor? Could you just write in the chat some feedback? And if that feedback is good and I could use it as a testimonial, I would love it, because then I can share that with the people who didn't come tonight to invite them to come back to our next webinar in a couple of days or tomorrow, whenever it is. And what I find is of those 50th people, I'll usually get 10 to 20 of them will actually give me a testimonial, and there'll be like 3 or 5 of those that I can then slap into the email that's already scheduled to go out tomorrow to advertise the next one and say, hey, here's what the people who were on the last webinar said about the webinar. And you should come too. So in other words, one of the things we commonly do is we get testimonials for our products, but we don't get testimonials for our marketing for the product. But when you can get testimonials for your marketing the product, they use that to market people to come and attend your marketing for the product. It becomes even more powerful. So brilliant idea. I love it, Rich.
On that, that's actually really smart because, I'm sure you've heard this story. I would imagine most people have. Like Ben Franklin came up with a concept, like if you want someone to like you, get them to do you a favor, not do a favor for them, get them to do you a favor. And there's a story of someone who was very powerful, like in the Congress that they were forming or whatever it was, or in something in politics. And he complimented the guy, and the guy didn't like him and he didn't like the guy. And he complimented him on his rare book collection and asked if he could borrow a specific book. And so the guy lent him the book. And, our emotions follow our actions sometimes, just like our actions sometimes follow our emotions, right? If we're being nice to someone, we must like the person, So, he lent Ben Franklin the book. Ben Franklin gave it back in the exact same condition that he had gotten it in, thanked him profusely for it. And that started a friendship. That's actually counterintuitive. You would think you do a favor for someone else. So you've done 2 things there, right? You first have helped them like you even more, which gets them to move in and might buy. And then there's also they've just made a minor commitment that can grow into a larger commitment. They made that commitment publicly, because if they're putting it, I had people email, but you're having them put it in the chat. That chat is they're making a declaration in front of others that they got tremendous value on this. This actually amps up some of the internal pressure to actually go make the purchase, just so that they're consistent in their thinking. So it wouldn't shock me if those people also had a higher proclivity to actually buy before the time period was over, especially when you used it in email saying that they said it was great. So it works on so many levels. I love that idea, Don. Very cool.
Yeah, and let me just throw out something else that might help. About 1.5 years ago, some researchers at Brigham Young University came out with a very interesting study. So we all know what a net promoter score is. When you ask people on a scale of 0 to 9, what's the likelihood that you will recommend this to somebody else? Okay, it's a standardized score that's used throughout all kinds of industries, and we know that a score of 7, 8, or 9 means that they're like your strong fans, and that's the group of people you want to cultivate because they're willing to share this with other people. And so you try to get that score to be higher. And what they found was when they did a survey that didn't just start by asking for the net promoter score, but by asking them a question before the survey. So they asked 2 different versions. The first one said, how can we improve this product? Then they asked Net Promoter Score question. The second one said, what's the best thing that you got out of this product? Then how can we improve this product? Then ask the Net Promoter Score. What ends up happening is when they started by asking a positive question, their Net Promoter Score was significantly higher than when they asked for just feedback, not asking for how can we improve. I'm sorry, I actually worded that incorrectly. They just said, give us feedback on the product. So it wasn't asking necessarily for a positive or a negative, but asking for a positive first actually significantly increases your Net Promoter Score. And that's what became the seed that created this idea that then I went on from there. So.
Yeah, I remember, just total aside here, but like, and I'll say this quickly. Dan Ariely shared with me, and I know he put it in one of his books, but like this sequence of asking questions can have a big difference, right? So I think it was something like, you know, how happy are you with your overall life, right? And then the next question was like, how happy are you with your love life? And there was no correlation, right, between their how happy they are with their life with how happy they are with their love life, right? But if they asked it the other way around, like how happy are you with your love life? And then the next question is how happy are you with your overall life? The question of how their love life had tremendous impact on the quality of it, like how they rated their life, right? So just
totally
a sequence of questions, right? Because now they're focusing on that, and that then on the next question has a residue, and so the sequence of questioning like that, where we used to ask in my hypnosis clinics, the very first question in the intake form was, what positive changes have you noticed between appointments? Like, we want them to be focused in on what they're getting good out of it, right? So it makes total sense. Never thought of that. I like that a lot.
And I think that this psychological reason is most people don't tolerate inconsistencies very well. So if you ask them a positive that they got out of it, and then you ask them to score it, it's very seldom that they will score it very low, because they need to be consistent with the first answer.
And we need to stay consistent ourselves. So once they give a high score, that then becomes what they're associated to. They just went on record saying it. So let's go back to Don, I guess, and break down more. And then when you've had enough we can just turn it into a conversation, but there's no pressure, because when we originally were talking, just so everyone knows, I said, Don, go for like an hour, and then Alan and I will jump in. But we're jumping in all the way through. So, you can just go the whole time and we keep jumping in, or whatever works for you, Don.
Okay. All right. So let's move here for a moment to what we actually talk about in the webinar.
Okay.
Because this gets really important. And the reason I'm going to bring this up is that this is the mistake that I see made more often on webinars than almost any other mistake. And that is, we need to recognize that the transformation you promise for your product should be different than the transformation you promise for your webinar. Here's what I mean by that. So if you promise the same transformation for your webinar as you promise for your product, what ends up happening is what Alan just said. People want to have consistency in what they are doing. They come to the webinar and you just promise them world peace or an amazing love life or whatever it is. They attended your webinar and they say, I can see how this will start to get me there, but I'm not there yet. And in order to be consistent, as Alan just said, they say, well, I can't buy their product because they promised me I would have world peace from your webinar and I'm not there. And so they don't buy your product. The other factor that happens when you offer something huge like world peace on your webinar is that you can't, it turns into your entire webinar becomes content. You haven't got time to properly do the psychological elements necessary to be able to sell. It becomes content offer with no psychology in between. And so my recommendation is you take whatever it is that is the transformation that your product gives, and then you say, okay, what one small piece of that could I totally deliver in about a 25 to 30 minute conversation in a webinar? And take that one small piece, and that's what you're going to focus on. So if your product gave a dog owner the promise that they would have a dog who was calmer, well-behaved around other humans and other dogs, then you may want to take your webinar, and your webinar is only on how to keep your dog from going nuts when someone rings the doorbell. Because you can teach that in 30 minutes. You can't teach how to keep them from doing everything else that's wrong with their dog. And by delivering that one small piece, knocking it out of the park in that 25 to 30 minutes, now you get the consistency that Alan just did, which is, wow, he just taught me, and I believe that I can get that result. Therefore, I can believe that his product is going to give me the result that I want also, and they keep the consistency, and it turns into a sale.
I want to share something, Don, that I don't know that I've ever shared with you. It's a process that we're talking about on the webinar. It's something I've done on numerous webinars. I think it's really powerful. I've not tested the webinars with it and without it, so I can't, I can't testify to that. But in my hypnosis centers, when we got professional salespeople that were highly trained, they would close close to 80% of the people that walked in our door for an average sale of about, as it was 1,400, grew it to 1,800. But when I was pitching, I only closed 40%. So I closed half of what these pros closed, and I had every advantage in the book because it was I was the guy on the TV, and I was, whatever. One of the things that our salespeople used, I had learned from Kenrick Cleveland, who teaches persuasion. And it was about eliciting criteria, like why that person was really there that day. Right. So, you come in, you want to stop smoking. You've been smoking for 20 years. And the salesperson is, Don, I'm sure you've thought about stopping smoking before, but you're here in this office today. What brought you into this office, to make this change today? And they'd say, well, I'm getting older and, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I don't have the energy I used to have. And then the salesperson would say, totally understand that. A lot of people tell us that they want to make sure that they live as long as possible, like just repeating their words back. But when you think about that, what is most important to you about that, right? And you're going 3 times, and you're basically just asking them what's most important. And then what tends to happen is people slowly reveal the truth, right? Like I was playing catch with my son yesterday. I got winded just throwing the football around, and I realized now I really got to do something. They don't volunteer that information up front, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was working on coming up with this automated webinars and the webinar process, one of the people I reached out to was Kenrick Cleveland, and I was teaching him what I knew, and he was teaching me with what he knew. And I told him hey, that criteria thing was absolutely phenomenal. Is there a way that we could do that on the webinar where there's not the back and forth? And he's like, yeah, let's try this, right? So I had that on a bunch of webinars in the beginning, and it was powerful. It was okay, there's a lot of things you could be doing today. You're here. You're not here for no reason. You're here because something is missing in your life, or you have something in your life that you want to make missing. Either something's missing and you want it, or, you have something that you want to get rid of. You have a problem you want to get rid of, or you're not making the money you want, whatever, or there's something that you want that you're not getting. So I want you to think about that, why you're really here. Because if you're not clear why you're here, the likelihood of you getting what you want is probably nil. So I'd like you to just take a moment right now, write down the paper in front of you. You don't even have to share it if you don't want to, why you're here, right? Then now that you're looking at that answer, I want you to really think about that answer and why is that important for you? What will it do for you, right? Doing it 3 times, right? Now they have this bottom line answer that is their core criteria. And then what Kendrick instructed me to say is, I want you to use that as the lens for everything that I'm going to cover today. I want you to look at everything I'm sharing, and I want you to recognize how that attaches to what it is you're looking for at the deepest level. Now that you know what it is you really want, use that as the filter to go through everything I'm saying. So you're basically putting it on them to, like, what you most desperately want, use that as you listen to everything I'm saying. And so you're really talking to their criteria. And it was powerful. Like, it was extremely powerful. And it's just another way to kind of get people's engagement and keep them engaged, because if they are really thinking about that deeper solution that had them, or problem or issue that had them show up on that webinar, you're reminding them that's what you're fixing. And you're asking them to keep reminding themselves through the webinar. Like, when you go over like secret number 1, do you see how that would help with whatever you wrote down there, right? You just have them make that linkage, and it becomes a stronger process. That's about well, I know a few other persuasion tricks when it comes to webinars, but that was one that I used early on that was really powerful, and it made like a topic like mine, which was just business coaching, more accessible, because people could see the connection to whatever it was by me instructing them to do that.
Cool. I like that. And the thought that comes to me as you do that is more sort of a bigger overarching kind of thought, which is that the importance, and this is the second thing that I see people leaving out of their webinars, which is the importance of understanding that it's psychology, not logic, that creates the sales. It's their emotions, not the logic, that creates the sales. If you look at the way most people do a webinar, they come in and it's like, here's logic. Boom, 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 boom. I'm going to teach you 5 secrets to world peace. And so you've given them that 5 secrets to world peace, and here's all these steps that they should do, and they've written down all kinds of things. And then you say, okay, now let me sell you. Here's my product. It's 8 modules, and I'm going to teach you about this. And what we don't realize is that logic doesn't sell, emotions sell. The process of helping them to address their emotions and you seeding those emotions into this process multiple times throughout the webinar is what makes that webinar sell. I've got a friend who is literally in the last 8 months has gone from the total inability to sell onto a webinar to doing well over $1 million on webinars. And the thing that he does is basically all he talks about on his webinar is emotional kind of stuff. He still teaches a little bit, but he teaches the emotional side of the logical piece. Mm-hmm. And so in the end, what he's done is he's just taken them through an emotional journey through how they feel about where they are right now. And then he makes the offer. And the offer is, and here's how you translate the way you're feeling right now into the way you want to be feeling in your life. Because there's a gap there right now. Let me help you get there. And it's a mass, I won't suggest that most people swing the pendulum that far, because most of us, unless you're really in touch with emotions, most of us can't pull that off. Right. But we need to significantly increase the emotional elements of our webinars. And I can talk about a couple of ways to do that, but I bet you've got an idea about what I've just said that you'd like to suggest.
I would just share one thing, because I'm guilty of this. I've been guilty of this. I constantly have to inject more emotion because I like to just, present basically.
You and I are a lot alike.
A logical argument that I feel is airtight. Like if you agree with point 1, there's no way that you don't get to point 11. But unfortunately, that's not necessary. It's not an argument, and therefore that doesn't work. I only have one tip to give, because it was the most profound. Made the most profound difference for me. And that is the book Resonate by, I forget her name. She teaches presentations, not presentations to sell. And she's mapped some of the greatest speeches and presentations that ever out there. Everything from Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech to Steve Jobs' introduction to the iPhone. And contrast is one of the easiest ways to set up emotion. Like if things stay the same, they'll end up like this. But with this solution, it can be like that. Unfortunately, you might have some challenges, which might look like this. But if you use this, you'll like, so there's the up and the down, right? Like, you know, we had a conversation the other night when we were out for dinner last night about relationships, and the higher the highs, the lower the lows, right? That's the way it is in relationships. It's the way in a webinar too. You got to take people high and low, right? Creates that emotional thing. And what she figured out was that they all follow a very similar pattern of this contrast, up and down, and towards the end, that contrast, the switching back and forth, gets quicker, which is very similar to copywriting, right? You want to increase momentum to that order button, right? And it's the same thing in a webinar. And she's one of the best presentation type coaches out there. I forget, I'll look up her name, and I'll have it in a second, but if you've never read the book Resonate, it's not a book about webinars. It's just a book about presentations, but it is phenomenal. And I share this with hesitancy, but at least just to be authentic, and don't hate me if you don't agree with my politics. I was planning on not voting in 2016. Like, I'm not a big fan of Trump. I've met him before. I think he's kind of a sleazy guy, whatever. But then this was a time when I used to fly back and forth to New York all the time because my girlfriend Kim lived in New York. I lived in Florida, and I hadn't moved yet to New York. And so I was on the plane flying up to New York, and that was the day of the riots in Chicago when Donald Trump was supposed to speak. And they were just, while he was running, and they wouldn't let him speak. They shut down like the outside of like the stadium or wherever. And I had such a visceral reaction to that, how unfair I thought that was, how they were ruining democracy. You don't have to agree with me or whatever, that was the moment. I was so angry that I decided logically, I would never vote for the guy. But the fact that other people were trying to silence him, that bothered me. And my visceral reaction to that was immediately, I got off the plane, and when I got to Kim, I'm like, I'm voting for Trump. I know I said I wasn't going to vote, but now I'm voting because of those people that were preventing him from just giving his stump speech. And that was the very first time that I realized I had heard forever that when you sell people and move action, you got to get them emotional. But I had never had the experience of so clear to me that once my emotions got ramped up, all of a sudden my proclivity to act or to act at all was greatly increased, right? And it was only because it was an emotional reaction, of unfairness, and that's not fair. And so that ever since that point, I realized I got to make my webinars better. I have to figure out how to inject emotion, and Resonate was the best book that I ever came across on it.
I have a quick question or maybe comment on it. One of the quotes that have really inspired and haunted me my whole life is a quote by the author of Little Prince, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, where he said, "A design is perfect, not when you cannot add anything more, but when you cannot take anything away." And I've been thinking about that as a question in terms of design of a webinar, right? TED basically crushed the speaking industry by saying, I'm going to give you 18 minutes to convince people that you have an idea worth spreading. 18 minutes, right? Before that, the standard was, if you wanted to, convince people of that, I'll give you an hour or 2 hours as a keynote, etc. And I was wondering, if you're trying in a webinar to convince somebody that you have a product or service that's worth buying, worth investing their limited attention and budget in, how much time should you really take, especially consider that they have limited attention? And the last thing most people want to do is to listen for 90 minutes knowing that at the end, they're going to be sold to, right? I was just wondering between you guys, what's your ideal design in terms of timing? Have you done experimentation? Do you get better results the longer it is, the shorter it is? Is there that magical golden rule of what's the almost perfect timing to keep it short and respect people's limited attention?
I'll go first, Don, but I think you'll have a better answer. So that's why I'll go first. When when Billy Mays, who was a very famous infomercial guy here in the United States, when he passed away, him and I were talking about creating a video marketing course. And so I felt really sad when he died of a cocaine overdose. And so I wrote a blog post about him, and because I didn't see that there were many out there. And what I did was I broke down all of his infomercials, and it was a 28-page blog post. And what I discovered was that the first call to action was a lot sooner than I would have thought. That like they got into the call to action within the first third, and now the rest was all like going, right? And so I think it's less a question of how long the webinar is as to how long does it take until people have the option to buy. Because, you know, some people can buy in 30 minutes, and because they're certain they want it, and you might lose them if you go 2 hours and you're not going to like flash the purchase thing until the very end. But, because I don't have a good answer. That's why I wanted to go first, because I figured Don will have a better one than I, because I'm not sure, because part of me recognizes that when they're short, you got a much higher chance of getting everyone to the end. And, the famous answer is it should be as long as it needs to be, but no longer, right? That doesn't really help anyone, but that's, a clever kind of response. I've also seen webinars that have gone like 4 hours, or Q&A that lasts like what Don was talking about, that lasts 2.5 hours because the sales are still coming in, and, it would have been a shame to have gotten off. So since I don't have a good answer, that's why I'm saying, like, think about when the actual call to action can be introduced. Like, when do you want that buy button to show up? Because it shouldn't be there right at the beginning. But I think that's an easier way, because before people go about like really shortening their webinar, one thing they certainly can do is say, at what point should people be like kind of be sold on this? But Don, now give a better answer, and so that we can all learn.
So Alan, I'm going to give you a counterintuitive answer here for just a minute, with an exception. So I realize I've given you two caveats here. So I'll tell you a quick story. I remember a sales page that I wrote that was 6 pages long. It was a written sales page. And then I came back and I looked at it some more. I rewrote it. It was now 9 pages. Sales went up. Next time it went to 12 pages, 15 pages, 17 pages, 21 pages, 26 pages, 29 pages. At 31 pages, it started going down in terms of conversion. So logically, people would love to be sold in 1 page or 4 pages, but the data consistently shows that the more you put in, the more they buy. The data that I have found, and I'll tell you the caveat, the exception to the rule in just a moment, says that the ideal time to post the call to action button is between 56 and 68 minutes into the webinar. Okay, so what you've done is ideally you've given them the buy button before the end of an hour. Here's the problem. If you go earlier than that, you've either cut out your selling process, or you've cut out the training process, and you've not done either one of them well. And so intuitively, people would love to attend a 20-minute webinar, but it doesn't tend to work. The testing shows that sales are lower when you have them shorter. So the ideal length for a webinar is 90 minutes to 2.5 hours, with a buy button showing at 56 to 68 minutes. Okay. Now, the exception to this rule is if your audience is corporate types that are sitting in their office viewing your webinar and actually have a hard scheduled calendar, that means they can only schedule an hour, they can't go an hour and a half or whatever. Those corporate webinars, and realize that the vast majority of those corporate webinars are not actually sold the buy button on the webinar, they're sold to go to a conversation. So the conversation is still going to happen with the buyer, and everybody else is associated with it. Those you want to have a button to sign up to get this additional conversation at somewhere around 36 to 48 minutes into the webinar. And you want to be done with the webinar hard end by 58 to 60 minutes. Okay, so how's that for a really sort of very precise answer? This is what happens in like 1,000 tests. Start discovering things. Okay. To this, to the emotion part for just a minute, and give you another story that has hard data behind it. Okay. So I spent the first 10 years of my career doing corporate marketing for Kimberly-Clark and Conagra and SC Johnson Wax. And so I've run hundreds of millions of dollars in ads over my career, and corporate career, television ads. And so I've done a lot of ads. And so I have had many times where I was working on a brand that was not advertising, and they would call me in to work on a brand that was advertising, basically as a consultant from the company. At one point I was working on banquet chicken. So chicken nuggets, bone-in chicken, you know, that kind of stuff. And it was really odd. I put on 20 pounds in 8 months because I ate chicken 4 times a day, fried chicken 4 times a day. And they called me in to consult banquet TV dinners, 99 cents at the time, TV dinners, wanted to do a commercial. And and when you do commercial advertising, what you tend to do is you start with a storyboard. So they've seen pictures and you've got the text, you're reading them, the text that go below it. And here's what we found. The commercial had mom with a cookie sheet and big gloves on, the kids sitting around the table. She puts a TV dinner in front of a child. The child goes, whoa! We stop. We ask moms, what are you feeling right now? And mom is saying, this is great because my kid's excited about food. Because normally when I put food in front of my kid, they're not excited about the food I just put in front of them. Then we went and had the kids say, whoa, my favorite. What ended up happening was, as soon as moms heard those words, what ended up happening is it triggered the thoughts in the mom, my kid's going to eat it, they're going to like it, and they're not going to be begging me for more food 30 minutes after dinner, and they're not going to be begging me for ice cream before bedtime. Okay? So just those 2 words told mom all these emotional benefits. So the feature is features versus benefit. The feature is now tied with super whiteners. So they make your clothes cleaner. So the feature is now with super whiteners. So you get cleaner, brighter clothing is the benefit. But there's another benefit that goes beyond that, which is the end benefit. And I'll tell you about, and so then we added one more line to this commercial. So the feature back to the commercial is, here's this TV dinner, the kid likes it. But when the kid says it's favorite, now it triggers benefits to mom. She gets all those other pieces. But then we had the kid reach over and hug mom's leg and put their head against their leg and saying, I love you, mom. And all of a sudden, every score on every test went through the roof. Because mom, we just shifted this from eating their chicken nuggets to my kid loves me because I fed them this dinner. So there you have a feature, a benefit. They'll eat it, they'll like it, they won't leave it, and they won't ask for more. And then you got the end benefit of my child will love me. Now let me go forward 4 years. I'm now working at SC Johnson Wax. I'm working on the Glade brand. They're coming out with Glade candles. They call me in to make comments on this commercial. So what they had is they had a commercial that had 1.5 second clicks. It was a collage made up of 1.5 second images of things happening. So here's a woman lighting the candle, breathing in, going, ah. And then here's this room with a bunch of candles around it, around the dinner table. And here's this one. And I said, you're missing the key scene you need to have. And they said, what in the world is that? And I said, go back to the old movie Out of Africa. So in Out of Africa, if you remember, I think it's Meryl Streep. Can't remember who the star was. Robert Redford. She's taking a bath. There's candles around the bathtub, and he is brushing her hair. That one scene caused tears to happen amongst millions of women worldwide because that's never happened in their life. And that's what they wish would happen. They wish that their man would love them enough to care for them that way. And I said, you put that one scene, you can do it in a second and a half. Candles around the bathtub, husband is brushing her hair. It'll blow your numbers out of the roof. And it totally did exactly that. Why? Because visually, without any words, we just said, buy these candles, your man will treat you this way. We got you to an end-to-end benefit, and it made all the difference in the world. How does this apply to webinars? Well, you should definitely have a scene of a woman in a bathtub and a man brushing.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
That's the lesson you should learn.
Have plans tonight?
Okay, it works. Okay, so here's what you do. When you present the description of whatever it is that you're going to sell them, you definitely have to tell them what's in it. Okay, this is 8 modules. You have to tell them what the 8 modules are, but you deal with that in like 5 minutes total. And then you definitely need some slides that talk about the benefit. You know, this makes it so that you get more sales, and you get quick sales, and you get, you talk about all those pieces. But then the piece that everyone forgets is the next slide, which is the end-to-end benefit, so that you get freedom, control, the ability to make choices in your life and do things that you couldn't do otherwise. If you don't fulfill that process, going from feature to benefit to end-to-end benefit, you're leaving them to imagine, and most people can't imagine living that life because it's so foreign to what they're living right now. And so we actually, as marketers, have a responsibility to tell them these pieces that they're not getting, to help them to realize this is the end benefit of what I am just teaching you here.
Very cool. The way I like to think about it, and I think it's similar, is I spend very little time on like the features of I'm thinking of my coaching program, like BGS, right? But I will list each module, and instead of talking about what's in each module, because that's kind of boring, right? Like I talk about what will be true for you at the end of that module, right? So I'm not talking about what I'm covering. I'm talking about what you're now going to know, what you're going to be able to do, what you're like, those things. And then the second part is, now the benefit of that is that benefit of like what you're talking about. And the other thing that you mentioned about, like, that emotional scene, I'm just reminded of this for people who want to take that whole idea further. I think the guy's name is, I know the last guy, his last name is Zaltman. I think his first name is Gerald, but I could be wrong. He's a professor at Harvard. He's written 3 books, How Customers Think, Marketing Metaphoria, and something else. And what Zaltman does for like the biggest companies in the world is he puts together a small focus group. They're individuals, like, they're not interacting with each other, of like 12 people for a company like the size of Tylenol. Like 12 people is enough. Yeah. And they give them a ridiculous number of magazines, and they ask them, when you think about buying Tylenol for your family, or when you think about Tylenol, or when you think about the category of pain relievers, I want you to make a collage, like take pictures, make a collage of what that represents. And then they interview those people, like, why did you choose that image? What does that image mean to you? Like, after they've done it. And they find that they can get to deeper subconscious beliefs because people are coming, like, they're picking like pictures, and now like they have to explain the pictures. And a lot of times when they're picking pictures, they're not even sure why they're picking them, and they're trying to come up with reasons, right? And like it came with Tylenol, and that was just one of the examples, I think, in the book that I read years ago. And it was like, why buy Tylenol as opposed to the generic, right? Like, this means that I care more, like there were specific things that they could hone in on that then they could use in their advertising and their message. In other words, how to find that moment. And it was really fascinating. So much so that I always wanted to, but I was afraid like I'd probably get sued, so I didn't do it. I wanted to create a digital version where people could just use Google Images and start like moving pictures over to a blank canvas. But I think that's Zaltman's technique, and he's probably extremely connected and wealthy, and don't necessarily want professors from Harvard coming after me. But very powerful technique, I thought, and I always loved it. And his last book of that sequence is Marketing Metaphoria, and that was like, he talks about it through all of his books, but like this idea of getting at the metaphors that already exist in your product, about your category or about your product, has immense power. And I remember a conversation that I had with around that time with Robert Cialdini, and we were talking. I'm like, "What's new with you?" And he's like, "I'm working on this book, Persuasion. It will be out in a year." It ended up not being out for like another 6 years. And I said, it's funny you mentioned like persuasion, because I've been doing a lot of research on persuasion, and I kind of believe that it seems to me that a metaphor is one of the most powerful persuasion strategies out there, because as far as efficiency, you're already attaching to what they already know, right? That's what a metaphor does. And now you're explaining this new thing in a way that they already know, and that can be extremely powerful. And he said, I'd agree with that. I would think metaphors are one of the most powerful when it comes to introducing something new that you want to persuade on. Because obviously he knows a gazillion times more about persuasion than I do. So I felt very great about that. And that whole, I see that picture, right, of Robert Redford combing Meryl Streep's hair as kind of a metaphor for love, right? Like it's a visual expression of what love is. And I try and work a lot on the slides, like the pictures that are in my background, to try and convey certain moods. I try to anchor certain things. I don't know if it's effective or not, where I use the same color for all the negatives. I use the same color for all the positives. And lo and behold, the color of my offer is on the positive side. It's the positive colors, not the negative ones. I don't know whether those things work, but I feel like they couldn't hurt. So I've, tried all those little things to try and make it more emotional, but I try and use my images a lot to convey the emotions. And I think a lot of people miss the chance to do that by just having like the white background, the 4 bullets, and moving on to the next.
Yeah, very good. Very nice. Okay, we've been going for 2 hours here.
Oh, wow. All right.
So got any questions?
Yeah, let's, if you guys have some questions, now would be the time to ask. There's like about a minute delay on the comments, but we've gotten crazy good comments, Don, as far as the content. We've gotten some not so great comments. They're not blaming us, but it seems like we're just having a connection issue of some sort. But it seems on both of our ends, which is interesting, because that means that if it is on both of our ends, asked, is it just Don? Is it just us? It has to be some face. We're not pulling you in. We're being pushed out, and then to another, like being pushed into Ecamm Live from your direct link, and then that's going to Facebook. So it has a Facebook site, but I promised everyone that I would. We're getting, which is pretty fast. So yeah, it's got to be on Facebook ads or Ecamm.
I just have the inability to sit and focus some days, so that might.
All right, so let's see. But I did promise everyone I would put it in our Facebook group tonight, and I'd load it up onto YouTube tonight. So we'll have them. So I don't know if this is a question. This might just be a thought, but Hugo is a loyal tuner-inner of these live streams, so let's give him this opportunity. He says, when we run our infomercials on TV, we broke 20-minute in 5-minute capsules, same 5 minutes throughout. Sometimes the capsules of 14 minutes twice, right? Like, so in other words, like they're breaking to offer. And Dan Kennedy talked a lot about that, because he was talking about people who turn into infomercials. Generally, they can be coming in at any time. So you got to have, like, call to action every so forth. with an offer that makes the phone ring. That might sound totally crazy based on the attention is the biggest constraint. How about a short webinar that you can teach one thing, like Don suggested, then sell a very low ticket offer related to that thing, and then follow up with a campaign like Don suggested to a seminar teaching the next step offer or a higher ticket program. Just a thought. Yeah, that's an interesting thought. You know, I would say is that if I was going to go about that, I would test that, but then I would also test potentially having that short webinar, have that low price product that then immediately, like, they can consume right now. It's short. That is the pitch for the next thing that plays like almost immediately, because the hardest thing to do is to make that first sale. To get someone to reach into their pocket, enter in their credit card information, and send you money is not easy. And what is easy is once someone's done that, to get them to do it a second time. Once someone has entered their credit card and they've now pressed the order button for a product, it's the reason why, you know, conversion rates on the front end can be like 3, 4, and 5%, and usually conversions on upsells can be 30, 40%. The reason why is that you've already overcome that tough obstacle. So if you could figure out it's certainly worth a test. I've often thought about, and there was a VSL creator out there that did this, but one thing that I always wanted to test, and if we don't have any other questions, then maybe that would be a cool thing, like just ideas to test. I always wanted to create a dynamic webinar. That guy, 2010, if we could do it, and he was like, of course we can do it, that's easy. And one time I would leave the market for a little while and come back in, I'd feel like I was kind of disassociated. I didn't really understand what my customers wanted. What I would do is I would then get a list of all the people that bought on the, I would call them. And they'd be excited that they were getting a personal call from me. And I would just ask them some questions like, how did you find out about it? What were your thoughts of the webinar? Did you have any concerns when you were buying? You know, those kinds of things. And one day I spoke to like 8 people that day who had bought the day before, and 5 of the 8 were over the age of 65, and just a weird day. And each of them made some kind of comment that made me think they thought they were the oldest person, right, who had ever bought my program. It occurred to me that, like, if I had all the testimonials from old people, all of like the examples I gave for old people, that would convert better to those people because they wouldn't have thought they must have been the oldest person. And I could easily do that by having the very same webinar, just changing the testimonials and a few word choices. And I could do it by asking a question early on that said, like, I'm just really curious. I want to survey the audience. How many of you are looking at this as your main business? Or how many of you are, this is more of like a retirement thing? You're trying to like get some extra income, or versus, you know, you're trying to build a $100 million business and scale greatly, right? Or something like that. Could go to different versions of the same webinar. It would just stand in a loop. I'm not going until everybody answers. I'm not going until everybody answers, right? And that'll just keep going and then be silent unless they pick one of those buttons, right? Like and then that would continue, or after 30 seconds, you could just give them the default one. But that was something I always wanted to test, and I never got the chance to, so I can't say that it would work, but it occurred to me that it should work, and it would be a really easy way to make the webinar content feel much more personalized without someone knowing. And I even thought about this, that since I wouldn't know where to put these changes, first, just put that question in, see how people answer it, see what the conversion rates are across the board for those 3 groups. Like if I was gonna, without even putting in any changes yet, just to see if there's a conversion rate difference between those 3 groups. And then if there was, that would be an indicator for me that I could raise the ones that are underperforming if I felt like it wasn't really talking to those people. So yeah, anyway.
Well, that's a very interesting idea. The way I think you might be able to do that for initial testing purposes is to actually bring people in either to a survey or to an opt-in incentive that has a survey on the back end, and then actually offer them different webinars depending on their answers to that survey.
Yeah, you could do it that way too.
And so then the thing that triggered this, I watched one of my students' webinars, and she gave basically fashion advice. And depending on the shape of the woman's body, they got different advice, right? So someone's an apple versus a pear versus, I can't remember what skinny is, but it's very different advice. And if someone who's skinny takes the advice to somebody apple, it's bad advice. And so what I realized, because she was trying to give every woman the advice on the webinar, the thing I came back to her and said was, here's what happens in your 60-minute webinar. There's only like 8 minutes that's applicable to a woman of the. You do a separate webinar for each shape, and started off with a survey where they self-identify that and go from there. And I haven't seen the results from it, but she was very excited when she heard that. It's like, oh yeah, totally, I totally get it. And if you have something that you can use to differentiate, that actually enables you to give a better selling message based upon the result of that, you could easily do that kind of survey up front and give them a different webinar based on it. This probably would work better when you get to the automated webinar stage, but you could also do it live.
Yeah, I agree. So Don, you've been very respectful. You haven't even mentioned like that you have a course.
Of course.
Yes, and so I think it's only like, I tell people all the details so that, if they're interested in this topic and they want to really hone their the funnel around their webinar to really increase performance, where should they go? Give them a 2-minute pitch or explanation on your, and it could go longer than 2 minutes. It could be shorter, whatever.
So my product is called Webinar Funnel Formula, and our mission is to help you develop an amazing webinar and the funnel that goes around that webinar. And so we actually are in the middle of a launch on this right now. We just finished all the live webinars. But if you'd like to see the replay of the webinar and get involved in the sequence that happens after the webinar, to those who didn't register for the webinar, you can go to webinarfunnelformula.com and sign up right now, and you'll get into that sequence and be able to see how we do all of these. It's an incredibly powerful program. We ran it last year, 43 pages of testimonials. So one of our biggest challenges in putting together this webinar is, which of those do we choose? And so it's changing people's worlds and doing amazing things, and would love to have you be part of that, because as I said, hey, I'm looking for number 71 and 72 and 80. And the cool thing is, it really doesn't matter where you were in the order of the number, whether you were the 71st millionaire that I've helped create or the 80th. It's the goal. Right. It's helping you get to being a millionaire. And I'd love to have you join me in that process. So webinarfunnelformula.com. Love to have you.
And that's not a redirect. That's directly to what's going on with Don and Jeff Walker. Jeff is his co-creator of the course. So there's no affiliate link. This is just, I spoke to Don a week ago or 2 weeks ago. He told me that they were relaunching this. I had gone through the course because it was the only course that I could find out there that really went over the funnel, and I know how important that is. And I felt that a lot of my knowledge was outdated because, like, when we did it back in 2008, obviously a bunch of things have changed. Don said, the problem is that we're not geared up to have an affiliate program. Like for this right now, it's 2 times constricted. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't need to make money, to put quality people and quality products in front of my people. And so, yeah, I'm not making any money on this, but I just want, and I'm saying that just to let you know that I have no agenda other than to tell you that I have total confidence in anything that Don puts out, anything that Jeff puts out. These 2 guys have always consistently put out great stuff. You hear me say this sometimes. You'll often hear me not say it if you listen about different people. But Don and Jeff are 2 of the good guys in this space. There are a lot of people who are not good guys. There are a lot of people who are out there for your money. That's not how Don operates. That's not how Jeff operates. I've said that about other people as well. When I don't say it, you can infer the opposite. I know that if you're in Jeff and Don's hands, there will be a significant improvement. You will be happy, and your net worth will benefit. from the entire process. So I just want to say that I can't more strongly recommend that if you have a webinar or you plan on having a webinar, having this is necessary, because for whatever reason, as Don said, nobody teaches this. They focus all their time just on the webinar. And while that, I would even say, is probably the most critical piece, because everything else is about intensifying the performance of the webinar. So if you don't convert anyone on the webinar, getting more people to register, getting more and getting more people like in a sales sequence after, not going to do you that much good. But if you're selling at least one person on that webinar, then all of these things are going to really amp it up, because these are multipliers, and they multiply on top of multiply. You get more people to register, you get a little bit of a higher show up rate. Those two differences get multiplied before the webinar. So it can be, you can make small changes in each of those numbers, and yet when it's all added up, you can 300%, 400%, 500% the amount of money you're making on the actual webinar. So it's really something that people should be paying a lot more attention to.
Thank you, Rich. I really appreciate those kind words.
And it's webinarfunnelformula.com. All one word.
Correct.
Very, very cool. Okay, does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
All right, cool. This is a question for you, Don. It's Priya. Don't know if you have a good answer for this. We're working without a net. Don, I sell art, fashion, and design products. How should I use webinars?
Okay, so Priya, it's tough to answer the question without asking you a question back. But the key question I need to know is, are you selling to the design community? Are you selling to consumers? That makes a big difference in my recommendation. But here's basically what I would be doing, is that I would be using webinars. So I would choose a piece. So remember when we talked about the transformation of your entire product might be an amazing wardrobe, or a wardrobe that is more slimming, or whatever that piece is that is